Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of our past guests have included Jiffy AI, eTream and ACOM, and even the Austin Technology Council in the city I'm in. Today, I get to speak with Sherry Winn, the CEO of the Winning Leadership Company. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using our Form Extract API, simply submit your completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that is 99.9% accurate. Visit quickforms.com to get started. Now, before I introduce today's guest, I have to give a huge thank you to Chris Zuchek, the Chief Product Officer at CAIS, for introducing me to Sherry. If you are in the world of alternative investments, you need to know CAIS. Go visit caisgroup.com for more. Now, I've really been looking forward to introducing Sherry Winn on this podcast ever since I met her. And once she starts talking, I think you'll know why. Sherry stepped into the world as a leader, first in sports, where she attended the highest level possible in athletics, the Olympic Games. She then led college basketball programs for 23 years, where she won a national championship and took her teams to 3 Elite Eights. Since 2012, as CEO of the Winning Leadership Company, she has delivered over 3,700 hours of leadership programs where she has developed Olympic-level leaders. Sherry has spoken to audiences as large as 14,000 and has spoken for companies such as Dell, Hitachi, and Adobe. She has spoken in Gillette Stadium, airplane hangars, baseball diamonds, and too many hotel convention centers to mention. Organizations such as the Volunteers of America, Florida Chamber of Commerce, Edward Jones, and a host of multi-million and billion-dollar companies invest in Sherry's teachings each year. She's also the author of Unleash the Winner Within You. Sherry, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Thanks, Rich. I'm so thrilled to be here chatting with you because I know who you are and I know that we have a lot of great things in common. So I'm really excited about our conversation.
Me too. So if you haven't heard this podcast before, I talk with leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. Sherry, we want to understand your business a little better. How does your company help people?
Well, so is the Winning Leadership Company. So our focus is on helping people achieve that Olympic level success, Olympic level mindset, so they can achieve unprecedented success. So what I really do is work with leaders so that they understand who they are, how they appear, what do they need to do to double their productivity, get higher engagement scores, get their people motivated so that they can be happy and enjoy work, which obviously increases everything else that goes on in the business.
So you come from sports. How does sports and business correlate? How do you bring those two together?
Well,
and you're talking to a non-sports guy, by the way.
Well, so businesses are made of leaders and teams, right? And cultures. Same thing that a team is about. Like you have to have great leadership to make the team work. You have to have that team unity, the team commitment, the team culture to make it work. So anything that, I've learned from all the people I've interviewed for my last book and for the upcoming book, including you, is really that there's not any separation between the ideas between a corporate team, what makes a good corporate team and a good corporate culture, and an athletic team. Those are exactly the same, right? So the crossover there is really huge. And it's all about people. I mean, people and relationships. So, any kind of business is about relationships. And if you don't have good relationships, you're not going to have a good business, right? So that's really the crossover there. It's exactly the same. A good leader is a good coach. A good coach is a good leader.
Yeah, I think you're right about that because I don't like when I'm called boss because I think of a boss as somebody dictating and telling you what to do. I like to be the leader where I'm collaborating and helping people see different things and have different perceptions and perspectives. So I'm curious then if you're focusing on leadership, are you really focusing on the person and their own personal growth then?
So it can be focused on different ways. So, it depends on what the company's wanting. So as a company wanting to build a winning culture, so that's a little bit different, right? There is those times that you have to get your leaders all on board. The leaders all have to think the same way. You've got to get them synchronized in their vision. So that's one thing. The other part is really, part of that building winning culture is building your winning leaders. So there are different kind of ways to go about it. But in the end, it's really about you have to get the right people in the right roles so that you're going to win, right? If you don't
Hmm.
have the right people, the right roles, you're not going to win. And part of that is making sure that people that are leaders, they have the right mindset. So it's not about me, it's about you, right? So as a leader, you have to understand this is about the team. It's not about you, which that means you've got to reduce your ego. Your ego's got to go in the back seat so that you can have the right vision, hold the right vision, keep the people aligned with the right vision, and empower your people. If you can't empower your people, there's no possible way of getting to success.
Right. So I've often read about different leadership styles. And
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you think one style is better or more effective or more productive, or how you look at somebody and help them develop their style.
Well, so I think that you have to be you, right? So you have to be authentically you, and I think a lot of people don't know who they are.
Hmm.
So you have to know you to grow you, right? And so that taps into that self-awareness piece, which I think is the most essential thing that you do as a leader. And the best leaders they have a very high emotional intelligence quotient, right? They're very high in their emotional intelligence. So what does that mean? That means that you have to work on that self-awareness piece. And the more that you work on that, the better leader you are. So how do you grow that? Well, that's self-reflection. That's understand, and not just self-reflection, but asking other people. And one of the things I tell good leaders is, how do you know what a good leader is? And they'll start telling me. I say, well, did you ask your team what they wanted from you? Well, no. Well, how do you know? Right? I mean, you've also got to respect and get their information coming into you. So if you had like their top 7 qualities they want in a leader, and you put that next to your desk every day, and you just ask yourself, like at the end of the day, like a 1 minute reflection, let's go from 1 to 10. How did I do in each of these characteristics? Oh man, I was a sixth. I was a 6 on listening today. I've really got to work tomorrow on being a better listener,
Yeah.
right? So if you're thinking and you're self-reflecting and you're being in that space, you're always going to be better because you're constantly working at being better and you're constantly aware of other people, right? And how you show up in that. So that's one of the things I love to talk about the most is, do you know who you are? Do you know how you show up? Do you know what your thoughts are that are disturbing you, that are stopping you and limiting you from moving forward? And I think that's one of the things you love to talk about, Rich, is really those self-limiting beliefs that we have.
Absolutely. I mean, I've written a book called It's My Life. I Can Change If I Want to. And it's a 4-step method of how to create personal change. But at the core of it, it's identifying beliefs.
Mm,
And there's this magical thing that happens. If you can identify a belief that's not working for you, I promise you will not choose a worse belief. You will only choose a better belief to empower you to do more in your life. Um,
absolutely.
so I have a lot of different questions around this. Going back to leadership style, I do agree with you. It comes to the personal, like what kind of person you are. And I've been with the kind of person who's a cheerleader
Hmm.
and it's rah, 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 but they don't necessarily care about me. They care about their vision and only their vision. They're trying to motivate you to go that way. Personally, I try to be a servant leader. I try to seek to understand and I try to help empower others to do what they do best. Um, so how would you describe your own leadership style?
Well, I think you're on, when you say leadership style, I think the first way is to find authentically you. And when I mean that, you can't help but be a servant leader if you know who you are authentically, right? If you're really diving into the pieces of you that are not productive, that are limiting, that are stopping you from being the best you. So when you show up as a leader, I think there's all aspects of you, right? Are you the cheerleader? Yeah, I can be a cheerleader. Am I a
Hmm.
motivator? Absolutely. But the number one thing is that if I understand me and I really have come to the place of knowing me and loving me, now this is a big part. I think that a lot of people don't love themselves, right? They say they
True.
do. Oh, of course I do. I love my, but it's really loving you. When you get to the place that you honor you, it's that kind of like that self-actualization model, right? So as you grow up, and then that top part is you're really living in that space of self-validation. When you no longer need the people around you to validate you, you're in the perfect space to be the servant leader. You can't get there. You can't just go, well, I'm going to be the servant leader. You've got to first not have the need for other people to tell you how good you are or to serve you, right? Or to make you feel better, because all of those inhibit you from being the best you and being the best leader.
Yeah. So I don't think that you were born with all this knowledge. I have to imagine there were some strife and some challenges that made you go, wait a minute, I need to do better. What was one of these pivotal moments for you that said, I could do better?
Oh man. I often tell people, like, you would not have liked me if you would have met me when I was in my 20s or my teens, right? You wouldn't have liked me. I didn't like me. So you couldn't have liked me. I didn't like me. There are so many moments that we get opportunities to get better or to get better, right? I mean, many people choose better and they get mad and angry and they can relate, like, this has happened to me and this happened to me and this happened to me. But I really think that everything in my life was perfectly designed for me to improve. Now, having said that, I didn't do that.
Easier said than done, huh?
I spent a lot of my life angry. Um, but I think the very last big event that occurred to me was I developed chronic pain at the age of 35. So I was an athlete. I always had identified myself as an athlete, still live like an athlete. I mean, I was still running and lifting weights and biking and rock climbing and all those things. And then at age 35, I developed chronic pain. I couldn't sit, stand, or walk without pain. So I literally went from this athlete to this couch potato, like boom. And I saw 17 different medical professionals, had every test known to mankind, and nobody knew, like there was no diagnosis. And the last group of doctors that I saw, they said, well, all we can do for you we'll teach you how to manage your pain. And I
Hmm,
was like, you don't get it. I don't want to manage it. I want to live pain free. This is not an option for me.
right.
But that process, because then I went away from Western medicine and I went into some alternative medicine. And part of that was these therapists who were like, okay, your body, mind, and spirit are all connected. So your physical pain might have elements of a spiritual element. It might have elements of emotional, and there might be true physical elements as well. But we need to address all three. And I'm like, you're full of crap. Like, that's a stupid statement.
It's only
Uh,
physical, right?
it's all physical, right? I don't know why you're talking to me emotional, but that was really the turning point because I wanted, pain often causes us to look differently, to open our minds to different things. And I was in so much pain, and they made me feel a little bit better. So I was willing to open up my mind to the possibility. Look, there could be something to this idea of emotions that I have stuffed forever and haven't dealt with. There could be some idea of the spirituality piece that I have dumped and said this is a bunch of crap too. So there could be some possibilities there. Let me start opening my mind. And so that was really where my new learning came, right? That's when I started opening my mind to other possibilities. I started reading tons and tons and tons of books. And where I had to get real. Like I had to
Hmm.
really look at myself in the mirror and say, do you like who you are? I couldn't even get to the word love. Do you like who you are? No, I hate me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough to get to that point.
Yep.
And what you're opening up here is what I would define as what self-awareness is derived from. It's being open-minded. It's being
Hmm.
open to all the possibilities.
Hmm.
So I'll tell you a story. In college, I was exceptionally poor. I had many weeks when I woke up on Monday with exactly $5 to my name, had to get to Friday for paycheck, had to find gas and parking fees and food, and had to figure it out, right? So one of the things I challenged myself to do is ask myself, what are all the options to get money? Now, normally we think about the positive options, like, well, I could borrow the money, I could earn the money, I could do a focus group and make $10. But what about the negative ones? I mean, if you really want to be self-aware, you have to open your mind to all the possibilities. So I have a simple rule, which is for every choice I'm going to make, there are 43 options I could choose. Why 43? It's just a sufficiently high and random number to challenge me to go beyond yes and no, true and false.
Yeah.
And so then you start saying, oh, I could steal the money. I could sell something I don't want to give away. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying I'd go steal the money, but to challenge yourself to be open-minded. So I think it's pain's the ultimate motivator here that caused you to get to that point. And with that open-mindedness, you sounds like you embarked on a journey of lots of studying and
Oh,
introspection.
yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing is, I did get healthy and I never took a drug. I never had surgery. So neither of those things never, ever in all that journey. And it was a really long journey, 7 years. But I never opted to take a drug or do surgery, mainly because surgery, they're like, it's 50% successful. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like
Yeah.
50% is a high enough number. And I didn't want to do any drugs because I just didn't want to add another element of something, right? Oh, here's the side
Hmm.
effects. Here's these 10 side effects. It'll make you feel better here, but you're going to get X. I was like, I'm not going to do that. So it really came down to, let me open my mind, like you said, let me really open my mind to these other possibilities, and let me start exploring, what do emotions really do to us, or what do they do for us? And
Hmm.
we tend to not understand the power of emotions, even when people will understand. If you go to the doctor and they say you need to reduce your stress to help your heart, people get it. Oh, yeah, I got to reduce my stress. They all get that. But they
Right.
don't think of stress as an emotion. Well, what is stress if it's not an emotion? It is. It's full of emotions. So we don't tend to understand that because we're just not taught that way. But once we really start examining our thoughts lead us to actions, and our actions lead us into our habits, and our habits become how we show up every single day, right? And so people who can't change is because they're unwilling to acknowledge the thought habits that they've had over time that have led them to the behaviors that they continue. And they think they're creating new behaviors, but you can't create a new behavior without a new thought pattern.
Man, you just articulated something for me I've never articulated, and it's given me clarity, which is that stress is actually driven by the emotions. And I feel like I live a very stress less or no stress life. My brother-in-law came to my office once when we had an office. He's like, "This is like a Zen library. It's so quiet and peaceful here." And it wasn't that people weren't interacting or engaging with things or customers weren't upset at times. It was just like, let things roll. And I just never articulated as driven by the emotions you have towards what's happening.
Mhm,
Man,
mhm.
I love that, Sherry.
Well, we don't know, but we don't even recognize, because we pattern ourselves after our parents without even knowing it. And how
Hmm.
many of us have said, "I'll never be like my mother, I'll never be like my father," right? And you go back 30 years later, you're like, "Oh crap, like I'm just like them." And it's not saying they're bad. I don't want to say that. I'm just saying that what we learn at an early age is so deeply imprinted in our brains and the way that our brains work, that we follow those patterns without knowing it.
Yeah.
And every time we follow a pattern, we reinforce it. And pretty soon, we're not making original decisions. We're just following a pattern of behavior that we heard and saw when we were young. And it's amazing to me. Like, I'm so curious now that I'm older, my parents are older, that I go and I listen to them and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's why I did that. Like, that's why I said that. That's what, and it's not, like I said, I'm not judging them. I'm just, they only do what they knew, right? And that's all we all,
Right.
nobody, we only do what we know until we open up more possibilities and more doors. But to get out of that, we have to be willing to take the time to change who we are, like you did, right?
Hmm.
And like many other successful people that all these people I've interviewed for my books, almost every one of them recognize the power of self-awareness and the power of changing who you are and your limiting beliefs. They all get that. And people who do not succeed in life are trapped in those old thought habits that they got from being a youngster.
Yeah. Somebody else said this to me recently, which is something to the effect of your business's growth is determined by your personal growth. And I can account for that, frankly. Everybody kept saying, Rich, you should read books. You should read books. Now, so one of the things I suffered from in my 20s and early 30s was smart kid syndrome, as I like to call it. I'm smarter than everybody. I don't need this. I don't need that. And I just reject things out of hand. The other side of it is I don't like to read. I just get too distracted to read. So I discovered audiobooks. Oh my gosh, I started devouring book after book, one or
Mhm,
two a month, three a month sometimes. Things changed. My gosh, my business started to grow. My team got better, more engaged. It was
mhm,
amazing because of
mhm.
that personal development that you're talking about.
Right.
So I hope our audience is hearing this and they're saying to themselves, okay, what pattern have I not acknowledged? What awareness am I not open to? What am I not being open to as a possibility? Because you're right. I mean, going back to things like spirituality, your emotions, how would that affect you physically? Come on,
Yep.
really?
Yep. How it affects you physically. And so it's amazing, how many emotion I stuffed them, because, hey, you're tough, you're an athlete, you're not supposed to feel anything,
Oh yeah.
those kind of things. And so I learned, and not only that, like in our family, we didn't talk about emotions. Like,
Mm,
there was no discussion of emotions. It was like, you're all right. get up, quit crying. You're tough. Like and I mean, they meant it in a good way. They wanted us to be tough and that kind of thing. But I didn't know how to feel an emotion because I just stuffed them. Well, your body can't accept this like anger and anger and anger and abandonment and betrayal and all the feelings that we feel. Like at some point, it just goes, "I'm done. Like
Yeah.
I am done, and you've got to do something different." And so it was really hard for me. Like Rich, I want to tell you how hard it was for me to even talk about an emotion, to
Yeah.
even talk about it, right? So these therapists that I work with, they would say, okay, let's talk about like when you were 13. And I go, no,
How can we help you?
no, no, I would shut down. And I mean, I don't want to shut down. Like I would like put up barricades, I'd have like a castle with a moat and crocodiles. And there's my army. Like you're not going to get through me to
Right.
any discussion. So it took me a long time to feel that I could even say, this is why I was so angry, or this is why I was so hurt, or this is, and it was so freeing. Oh my gosh. Like at the point when I finally could talk about it, I was like, why was this so hard? Why was this so
Isn't that
hard?
amazing? You
Yeah.
had all these fears bottled up around what that emotion meant, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. That's incredible. Somebody asked me recently, which caused me to make a breakthrough 2 weeks ago, and it's been an amazing breakthrough for personal and I think business reasons, which was why am I pushing so hard against something? Because I
Mm.
was acknowledging something and trying to stay away from it super hard. Why? And that was the technique that made me realize, oh my gosh, there's something here I've got to dive into. Do you have a favorite technique or go-to technique when somebody is bottled up and challenging?
Well, I think the first thing is you just said something, which is a universal principle is what we resist persists, right? So
That's
whatever
good.
comes at us and we tend to push it away, I don't want to deal with it, da, 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 that is going to keep coming, right?
Yeah,
So,
right.
and if you really examine your life, you'll know like similar things keep coming at you, right? Like, why do I keep having the same kind of crazy boss? Why do I keep in the same relationship? Like I divorced this person, I married a new one, and they're the same person. I didn't even see it, but we're in the same relationship I was in. So it's because we're not willing to like step into that and learn from it. So the first thing is to understand the universal principle, like what we resist persists. So we might as well meet it right where it's at. We might as well
Yeah,
just welcome it like, hey, come on in. Like, let's talk about this. Let's meet you where you are. Let's examine this. Let's feel this. What are the feelings I have around this? How is this particular thing that I'm doing? How is it becoming problematic? And how is it showing up in all those different areas of my life? And it's something like kind of like the technique that you use in your book, a little bit different, just because how's it showing up? Like in what ways is it showing up? Is that a
yeah,
positive for you? Is it a negative? How is that helping you? Who would you be if you didn't have this? Like how would that further your life if you didn't have it? Let's future pace. Let's think about the good stuff. Because I think that we get locked into the negative, the negative, the negative. This is what I feel. This is how it's showing up. And we've got to get out of that to think about the future pacing. So, yeah, just acknowledging like, how is it a problem for you and how's it showing up? How is it hurting you? And you do that in your book. You state a little bit differently. I love the way you state
mhm,
it. What the consequences does this bring up for you and for others, I think is the way you state it.
yeah. Who is it impacting? How does it manifest? When does it come up? Where does it come up?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think those are all honest questions. I actually in my book also say don't ask a why question
Yeah.
because your brain is wired to answer every question, and why is so destructive. Why can't
Yeah.
I lose weight? Because you're lazy. That's not a great answer. When can I lose weight? In the morning, in the evening. How can I lose weight? Go to the gym, eat less.
Yeah. Those are great questions, right? Because the why is it always insinuates kind of this negativity. Like even
Yeah.
when leaders are saying, well, why did you do that?
Oh yeah.
So what's it saying to the person? Like you're stupid. So
Yeah.
it's not a good question. It's not a good way to ask a question. So you're correct in that. Yeah. So everything I do really with leaders is let's get more self-aware so that you can show up, authentically. So you can show up in this. And now when I say authentically, I think we're all authentically love. It's just that we have, negated that. We haven't allowed ourselves to be that. Well, man, if you want to lead from love, it's a whole, and I don't mean like, kissy mushy, like let's romantic stuff. I'm not
Kumbaya.
I'm talking about like the place of compassion and empathy where I really, really care about you and, furthering you and helping you become the best version of yourself. Who doesn't want to work for that person?
Yeah. One of the things I learned in talking to people like yourself through this podcast is that if you want to build the best customer experience, you cannot do it if you do not love your customer first. So coming from that place of love, and I think that your inside talks to the outside. So how you treat yourself, therefore how you treat your own team is what's going to manifest for how you treat your customers. So
Absolutely.
to love your customer means you have to love yourself and your team and the process and the problem and the
Yep.
solution, not just, oh, I love this guy because he's cool.
No, 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 no. I agree with you 100%. Like it first comes from you, and you can't give what you don't have, which is what I believe that, training leaders, coaching them and giving their highest opportunity to really get like you can't give what you don't have. So if you don't have compassion, you can't give it.
Yeah.
If you don't care about you, you can't care about others, right? And so it shows up throughout your entire, it's going to show up through every conversation you have. It's going to show up through every experience, connection you have, every network you have, every time you have a conversation with a team member or a client. And so that's why they, like you said, it's from the inside out. So let's heal and help you heal the inside. And some people go, well, I don't need anything to heal. I'm like, I've never met a person that doesn't have something they need to heal.
Yeah. No, that's so true. That goes to the imperfect nature of who we are.
Mhm.
And the fact that I'm 49 years old and I just discovered something that I chose a belief when I was 18 that has been manifesting in the wrong way all these years.
Mhm.
And suddenly I lift it and I feel like a cloud has been lifted and I've got a whole new perspective. Tells me there's a whole bunch more I'm probably missing.
Mhm. Well, I love the way you say I chose a belief. I mean, how wonderful to know that we chose it, because if we chose it, we can release it.
Absolutely.
Right? How wonderful to know that. And so it's so powerful to say, I chose this belief. I chose to believe this way, which then manifested all these events in my life. And now I can choose a different belief, which is going to bring me all these other wonderful things that are coming in. And you're right. I mean, it's a never ending story. It's a never ending journey. A never ending journey of ours is to learn a little bit more about ourselves, right? And to dive deeper into greater knowledge and awareness.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm wondering if you have a favorite success story to talk about with a customer that you helped transform and what happened for them as a result of working with you.
There is. I had a CEO who called me and he said, I want you to coach my CFO. And I said, great, tell me more about it. He goes, well, he just lost us $1 million. I'm like, dude, I can help you. He goes, really? I said, yeah, fire him. You lost you $1 million, fire him. Because I'm going to save you a lot of money. You don't have to pay me. You don't have to pay him. And we kind of laughed because it was meant to be a joke. And we laughed. And I said, well, sure. Like, let's, I'm happy to work with this guy. So I started working with him, and about a month later, the CEO calls me back and said, what happened? What'd you do? And I'm like, uh-oh. I was thinking, did he lose more money? Like, what happened? I said, well, like we've been having some great conversations. He said, no, he just got his $1 million. So tell me what you did.
What?
I said, well, first of all, you owe me more money, because if he made you 6 million, you can pay me more. But I said, no, really. I said, it's just a matter of discovering what he was doing. And what he was doing is we all have this need. There's a need to control, and when we have a need to control, it's out of fear. So instead of doing, like, he was doing too much, he was interfering with all of his people all the time. Like, he was in the weeds doing all this stuff. And the reason he was doing that's because he needed to control. The reason he needed to control because of the fear that he had, right, about himself,
Yeah.
because control is always about fear. So when we worked through that, he was able to empower his team, right, which allowed them to go out and do more, and then he could focus on other things that were outside of his team, right? So he wasn't having his little micromanaging. He was able to focus on other things, and therefore able to impact the business in a truly different way. So, it wasn't just a matter of going in and go like, hey, like, snap my fingers and you're done. It was really his willingness. Let me say this first: his willingness to examine what he was doing and why he was doing it, and to address the underlying fear, so
Hmm.
that he could change and empower the people around him and empower himself.
I love that. I love that. I view my company as empowering people to do their best work.
Hmm.
And I didn't really learn that until I had my first child because I went from working 80-hour weeks to 35-hour a week. And that was my choice. I said, I want to spend time with my kids and my family. But doing that, I felt all this guilt and shame of not producing, not doing the work. But what it forced me to do was finally delegate properly. And guess what happened, Sherry? We started growing like crazy. It was amazing. I got out of the way finally.
But see, that's that point though of you reaching the point where you didn't feel like you were necessary, right? And that's hard because we have to release that kind of ego, the thing to say, other people can do what I was doing. Like that's but you
Yeah,
can't do that. You can't do that if you're not already the place that you know you're worthy, like you truly know your worth.
yeah,
And then you don't need anybody to tell you it. It feels good. Like I'm always going to welcome somebody saying, "Hey, thank you." I'm always going to welcome that. I just don't need it anymore.
yeah.
Like I'm not looking for somebody else to validate me. I don't need that anymore.
That's such an
So
important stage to be at.
it's
Yeah.
huge,
And
huge.
unfortunately, so many people never reach there.
Yeah.
I I know that. The other favorite part I have about your story about the CFO losing $1 million is the idea that that was a lesson he learned that cost the company $1 million. Why would you fire the guy who just had the most important, expensive lesson ever and give him to the next company?
Well, and that's a kudos to the CEO, right? Who was willing to invest instead of just fire. I mean, really willing to invest and say, look, I'm going to give him a chance to learn and to grow, and I want to figure out what it is that we can do to make this different for our company and for him, giving him that opportunity. Now, some
Yeah,
people look. I'm not going to say there's a success story in everybody I work with because that would be a lie because it's not based on me. All I'm doing is giving you the opportunity to grow and learn. You have to be willing to do the work. I am not a magic. I don't have any. I'm not a magician. I don't have any like magic fairy dust I can throw out there. But I can help people recognize, what they're doing to themselves so they can change.
yeah, yeah. So let me ask you one more question before we start wrapping up here. Tell me about your book. Tell the audience about your book.
So the most recent book that I wrote, I'm going to show it.
Yeah.
Is this? It's called "Winning Leadership: 7 Secrets to Being a Truly Powerful Leader." And this came about from interviewing over 200 leaders. And so one of the questions I asked was, "What's the biggest challenge you've ever faced?" And over 80% of those people said myself.
Hmm.
So it developed the first chapter, which is called The Winning Factor, which is all about self-awareness, right?
Nice.
And it was just so fascinating to listen to these people. And it really changed. Like I started with the idea that, there's so many poor leaders and we need better leaders. And I discovered through the people that I interviewed, there's a lot of good leaders out there. Maybe there's still some poor leaders out there doing the wrong thing, but there's so many good people who have taken the time to invest in themselves, who have hired coaches, who have hired have gotten mentors, who've read books, who've listened to books, who've done self-reflection, who've done the work. There are tons of those good people out there, right? And so they gave me this information to share with other people, so that, no matter where you are, if you want to improve, there's an answer for you in the book for you to get a little bit better, right? And it doesn't mean that you go from, oh, I'm at the bottom, I go to the top. I mean, you could be like a silver medalist and you just want to be a gold medalist. So you got to do that work to increase your possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Okay. I don't want to wrap up yet. I have another question. What is the difference between a silver medalist and a gold medalist?
Man, you know what? It's like, can you think about the Olympics? It could be like a 0.01 second.
Right. Yeah. It's so fractional.
It's fractional. So what is that difference? And I think it's the mindset. I really truly believe it's the mindset. So it's the person who can get their belief system aligned with their goal.
Mm,
And I don't think a lot of people can actually do that. I think that a lot of people want something. The reason they can't have it is they cannot align. And people say, "Oh, I'm aligned with it." No, you're not. If you're aligned with it, you'd be living it. You would be, if you were totally in alignment with it, you'd be living it. If you really listen to your inner voice, it'd be like, well, you may not be smart enough, or you may not, you don't have the background, or you didn't graduate from XXX university, or you don't have the right network, or like, so you
right.
want it, but like that difference is really, is your goal aligned with your belief system? Are you in total congruence to that? And if you are, you're living it.
So that could be as simple as if you want to, let's just do something simple. You want to increase your strength and your bodybuilding or something, you got to eat the right foods.
Hmm.
And so if you start eating the wrong foods, you're not in alignment with the goal. I mean,
Hmm.
it could be as simple as that, right? I'm sure there's way more nuance to the Olympic
Right.
athletes.
Well, it's really that, I think it's the belief system about you, right? I don't know if you watch women's basketball, but there's a phenom right now called Caitlin Clark. So Caitlin Clark is rewriting the rules for playing basketball. She shoots for the logo. So she's shooting, when everybody else is shooting the 3-point line, she's like 6 feet back and making them consistently.
Wow.
So why is Kate, and you look at her body and she's like, she's not overly muscular. She doesn't have this incredible jump. I mean, she's not super fast. I mean, she's good, but what makes a difference between Caitlin Clark and everybody else in the world, right? It's simply that she believes that she can shoot the ball from anywhere and make it. She literally
Wow.
believes that. So when you watch her play, you start wondering, like, what in the world? What does she do to her mind? Who convinced her, like, that she could do these incredible things? Because she's on this right now. She's the second all-time leading scorer ever in Division I basketball ever, and she's got 9 more games, and she'll, unless something happens, she's going to top that and be the all-time leading scorer. So what is it about her, right? Because you look at other people, they're faster, they're more athletic, they can jump
Right.
higher. It's right here, man. It's right there.
That is powerful stuff, Sherry.
It is
That
powerful
is
stuff.
awesome. All
Yeah.
right. So look, we got to wrap this up. And before we do, I have another question, but what is the best way for people to connect with you and find you?
So whether you want your business to get, if you're struggling with a winning culture and you like to have that, or you really want to have that unprecedented success from your leaders, whatever that is, looks like for you, you can find me at www.thewinningleadershipcompany.com. That's how you can find me. And if you want to have a free discovery call, like I always happen, and I don't pitch, look, I'm not a person who through the whole conversation pitches you. I'm a person who, after the call is over, you're going to have 3 takeaways that will help you immediately with your business.
Nice.
Immediately, guaranteed, right? So if you'd like to do that, you just email me at Sherry. You can be Sherry, Sherry, at thewinningleadershipcompany.com.
Outstanding. That is awesome. All right. So I had a ton of questions, but my last question is who's had the biggest impact on your personal leadership style and how you developed?
You know, everyone wants to say a positive person, but I'm going to say to you that it was a negative person, and it was my 1984 Olympic coach. Because over the course of the 3 years of playing, I never got a single compliment. I never got anything that helped me. He often called me stupid. Shetty, you're so stupid.
Oh
Why
my
you play? You're
goodness.
stupid. Like, this is what I got. And I knew going through that my skill level dropped because I believed in him. So instead of helping me find my best version of myself, he actually took my skill, and I was less than, because I
Wow.
didn't have the power to not believe him at that point in my life. And so I think about all the lessons that he taught me, right? It wasn't like, oh, all these great things, but all the things not to do, like everything that I should never do as a coach or as a leader. I had a whole big journal of them, right? Like you talked about 43 things not to do. I could probably have 143 things not to do. So when you looked at, go back to better or bitter, at first I was bitter about it. And then I recognized the true gift that he gave me through all of that, because it really transformed the way that I looked at leadership and the way that I led.
Man, I'm so glad you said this because you're right. Most people seek the positive in this, but I would say the contrast is equally important. And I kept working at different places through college to find what I liked, and I only found what I didn't like. So when I did see what I liked, it was in contrast. I could actually identify it more clearly. That
Mhm.
is brilliant. That is totally brilliant.
Thank you.
Well, look, I have to give a huge thank you to Sherry Winn, the CEO of the Winning Leadership Company, for being on this episode of the Customer Wins. Go check out Sherry's website at thewinningleadershipcompany.com. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easier. I hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did, and we'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of the Customer Wins. Sherry, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rich. It's fun. Lots of fun.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.